$7 minus 3% state tax. Don't forget that. You gotta get, they're gonna get that. Ladies and gentlemen, and if the winner would, I want you to come out here and be with me right out here. I want you to come out here so we can take a picture of you. Mr. Garry Wesley right here.
Hello and welcome to the Lightning Bolt Show. This is the third season of this series here. After a long break, we're back and ready to go. And I have a very special guest with me tonight, Mr. Garry Wesley. How are you, Garry?
Good. How are you doing, Logan?
I'm doing just fine. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get started here with our interview. Tell us how you got started doing Elvis.
How I got started? Well, I was an Elvis fan since I was about 6. And, of course, I didn't think it was going to carry on through my life. It really impacted me when I started watching him in his movies and everything else. You know, from the age of 6 up to like the age of 12, I finally got to see the Aloha show on TV. Well, of course, I got to see the '68 comeback and the Aloha and his movies. But I never thought that I would be doing it for a career. It didn't start out that way. As a matter of fact, it started out on Halloween of 1980. A couple of friends of mine said, how would you like to dress up for one night? And we know you like Elvis, so why don't you just dress up like Elvis? And I said, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. You know, it's for one night. You know, you can get away with it for Halloween. Who's going to get mad at you? You know, I said, well, all right, fine. So we did. And my buddies looked like the Blues Brothers, and of course I dressed up like Elvis. And I had to go through a lot of things to get to that look. I had to cut my hair, I had to get it dyed, naturally dishwater blonde, and of course I find out that Elvis was too. So it was kind of strange how that happened. But I ended up getting my hair cut, and I already had the sideburns already. That was back in that time, and I had my hair cut, and my sister did makeup on me, and she said, all right, you're set to go. So we take off, and we go to Nick's Nickabob on State Street in Milwaukee, and that was a hot spot. That was a place where a lot of the big stars performed, and they were having a big bash. So we get to the door, and the guy at the door said, man, you guys are late for the show. What are you guys doing? Get in here. And we said, well, we didn't get a chance to say, well, we're paying the cover charge. You know, get in here. He thought we were with the band. So we got in for free. And so then it kind of took off from there. And I ended up getting up on stage that night with a friend of mine, Jerry Allen. And it was kind of comical because he's hollering and he says, hey, we got Elvis in the audience. And I'm looking at my friends and going, man, there's another guy dressed like Elvis here. And they all said, no, Garry, you're the only one dressed like Elvis here. So I said, okay. And then and Jerry says, come on up here. Can you sing? And I was shaking in my boots. You know, I'm like, man, I don't think I can do this. He said, just follow me. So I followed him, and we did a medley of Elvis songs. And it took like 5 minutes to get through it. It felt like 5 hours, you know, forever. And we get done, and the audience went crazy, and the club owner, Nick himself, came up to me and handed a business card to me. He says, man, do you have a band? Are you in a band? I said, no. He said, well, when you get a band together, call me. And I thought, wow, I was just shocked. So we went to 2 other clubs that night, and we ended up, I didn't sing at those, and they had live bands there. And I had the club owners coming up to me, asking me, you know, for my information and giving me their business cards, and I was signing autographs and all this stuff, and I wasn't even an entertainer at that time. And so it kind of took off from there, and we're like, well, you know what, maybe there's something to this. And it really took a while. It took a little while because it was like because I'm an Elvis fan first of all, and I was not sure if I could do this without people being upset, because it was so new. It was 3 years after he passed, so it was still so fresh in the minds of Elvis fans, and it was in mine too as well. And it was really a difficult time to whether or not do it or not. And I made my mind up. I said, I'm going to do it, but I don't care if I make any money on it. I'll do it because I have a respect for him. And I ended up before karaoke came out. Now here's the best part. Before karaoke, okay, so I'm singing with bands and stuff like that. So I figured, okay, I got to go to this club and I got to do an audition. And it was one of the places that we went to that night. So I figured, all right, well, I'll go check this out. So I had a friend of mine that was in the studio, and he said, "Do you have any Elvis records in stereo?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "Bring them to the studio, and I'll eliminate Elvis's voice as much as I can, and you use that for a backtrack." Now, this is before karaoke. So I said, all right, well, never heard of it before. You're the engineer, so. And he ended up doing that, and I ended up with 3 20-minute sets of Elvis. And I went and I did the audition, and the club owner said, "I want to hire you." And all of a sudden I got hired. I had no idea what to charge him. He said, "I'll give you, and at the time, $200 was quite a bit. He said, "I'll pay you $200 for 2 sets." So it was $100 a set. And I'm like, wow, I'll make more here than I make at my day job. Because I was new. I had no clue how much to charge and all that stuff. I didn't know. So it ended up being, when I did that first Friday night, it was only supposed to be one show a month. Well, he says, "I want you to come back next Friday." I said, "Really?" He goes, "Well, yeah." And I came back the following Friday. And then he says, "Okay, I want you every weekend. I want you Friday and Saturday." I was just like, wow. And he says, "I'm going to pay you $400 a weekend." I was blown away. I was like, I had 3 jobs besides doing the Elvis.
Wow.
I had 3 jobs, and I was working for an investment company. I was bartending, and I was also working for Kentucky Fried Chicken. I worked for the Colonel. So, and so it ended up so that I ended up having to get rid of one of the jobs because it was just too much. And I think it was the investment job. I got rid of that, and so before you know it, I was working. I think I was working there for 6 months. And after the show, of course, what was really nice about it, after the show, I ended up leaving early because I didn't have to stay that long at the other show. I was there till 9 o'clock. I did a 7 o'clock show, an 8:30 show, and then I was out of there. So, I mean, the sets were only half hour long. And so I go and I take off and I go to a nightclub where I go and see, this couple, Bill and June Spalding. They had their own band, and it was a Friday night. They'd always get me up to sing with a live band, so I wanted to make sure I had that going for me. And then eventually I ended up seeing other bands on the weekends, and of course I got to see my buddy Jerry Allen and the Rockin' Robins, and I got up with them, and before you know it, I was hitting all the major bands that were coming from all over, and I'll be sitting in the audience, and they'd go, "Hey Gary, come on up here and sing with us." And the camaraderie was just unbelievable. And so I got that chance to sing with a live band, and I had that opportunity to be introduced to a different crowd, and it just started growing after that. And I ended up getting my own band eventually, and started traveling.
Wow.
So, yeah,
Wow.
when I first left Wisconsin, I was afraid. I never left Wisconsin in my whole life. I went to Minnesota, but that was with a friend of mine. That was one day. But I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going across the borders, woohoo! You know. But then, yeah, I ended up traveling, and before I know it, I hooked up with agencies, and I started booking everywhere. So.
Very cool. Now it's kind of cool how it just sprung that fast, you know?
Yeah, it was so fast that it was. I didn't have time to think about it. It was just so quick. I didn't expect that. I thought, okay, this is a one-night thing. That's as far as it's going to go. But that one night made such a change that I was like, wow, maybe there's something to this, and maybe I can do a good tribute to him. And back then we were called Elvis impersonators. We weren't called tribute artists. And we really, I mean, as an Elvis tribute artist, I really didn't like the name impersonator. But we had nothing else at that time. And, it was kind of rough. I mean, I have to be honest with you, some of the Elvis fans were really, really rough, because they loved Elvis so much that they said, you can't replace him. Well, I'm not there to replace him. I'm there to bring back his memory of him and do the best that I can. But you get some people that were really mean. I mean, I had, I got into fistfights with a couple of guys. Yeah, literally, barroom brawls. Guys mocking me and giving me a hard time, but they were cutting Elvis down, and that got me mad. So, I mean, you don't talk bad about Elvis. You can talk bad about me all you want, but don't talk about Elvis, And I got into fistfights, and I was a scrapper at that time. I was in my early 20s, and I was like, I'm not going to take this from anybody, So, but yeah, there you go. So yeah, I mean, I also learned martial arts too when I was actually I was 18, and I learned Taekwondo from a friend of mine, and he was a first degree black, and I learned that. And I also learned Golden Glove boxing from a Golden Glove boxer champion.
Wow.
He was my roommate, and it was funny because he was like 6'2", and he showed me how to box. And once he trained me, he says, "Okay, well, let's go." And I hit him on the jaw and knocked him down.
Wow.
And I stunned him pretty bad. And he was like, "Man, I've never been hit that hard in my life." And I said, "Well, I wasn't intending to hit you that hard." I said, we're just boxing, And but he took it. I was like, "Wow." He says, you shocked me." I said, you really went for that shot." And I said, "Yeah." But we were friends. I was like, I felt so bad. I was like, oh my God, I hit my friend,
Well, I
But
better make you angry then.
yeah.
But
Later on, I went into kung fu and Gorchar kung fu is what the class I was taught. I was Southern Shaolin monk. American Shaolin is what I am, and so I do have also other martial arts behind me besides that. So now today to consider it MMA, I've got probably about 6 different martial arts behind me. I was a wrestler in high school, so I mean, yeah, I've got a little bit of everything going on there.
well,
So,
it's that's good because I know you incorporate that into your show,
yes, I do. Yeah.
and you can break it down and the moves.
Yeah, well, especially I watch Elvis, I watch what he does, and it's like, whoa, man, there's some of those clips. I know I gave you some DVDs recently, but there's some clips in there where he's just flying across that stage.
Yeah.
And I mean, you watch his footwork and his method of how he puts across the martial arts. It's incredible. Now that man was someone you didn't mess with. And I got to be good friends with Superfoot Bill Wallace. He was sponsored by Elvis for 2 Olympics, 72 and 76, and Bill was sponsored by Elvis. So he ended up bringing home the gold every time. And Superfoot has the fastest kick in the world still today at 75 miles an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of, we're jumping back and forth, but there's a lot of people I've met that worked with Elvis, and you know, and were in martial arts with him, and I met Kang Ree, one of his instructors. Never got to meet Ed Parker, but I got to meet people that were associated with him.
Wow, that's awesome, Gary.
Yeah.
Now, going back to
And also Bruce Lee too. So I got to meet some people who met Bruce Lee. But we're talking about Elvis, and
you know, it's almost, even though Bruce Lee wasn't, you know, American, he's part of our culture pretty much, just like Elvis, you know.
well, yeah,
Almost
yeah.
Americana, you know.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, Elvis was definitely one of a kind, and I think Bruce Lee was one of a kind, you know, in his realm, and it's a shame they were both too young to pass on.
Yes, yes. Well, let's go back to more of you starting out. And
All right.
that was 1980, correct?
Correct.
So now, when did you start like traveling out of the state and taking it more professionally?
I would say probably around 1982. I started taking it more and more out of the States, and traveling more. And then eventually I ended up doing some of the bigger shows, I should say, not production, but bigger shows, concerts. I ended up later on throughout the years, I would say I played to about 50,000 people for 2 shows, 2 nights. Yeah, that was the biggest crowds, one of the biggest crowds. And that was actually in Wisconsin, believe it or not. I couldn't believe it. It was Chippewa Valley Country Fest, and that was back in 1986 and 87.
Wow.
I did play Summerfest before that. I played that in 83, 84, 85. And at that time, the Summerfest grounds held a quarter of a million people. So, yeah, at one time. And it still does today. So the stages we were on would probably have somewhere between 10 to 12,000 people at a time.
Wow.
So yeah, we played some big crowds, and we got on TV and all that stuff, and TV interviews, and so yeah, it's kind of, from that, once you played something like that and then you go play a small place, it's such like a, oh my gosh, I just played for 10,000 people and I'm playing for 100. You just go, oh, but you do it because you love it, and you play for 100 people, you play for 10 people, it doesn't matter. You know, it's what you put out there, and because you never know who's going to sit in the audience. That's the whole thing. And I was told that from early on. And if you have 10 people, it doesn't matter. But one of those 10 people could be somebody that could take you to another level, or put you somewhere else. But not just that, you want them to be happy when they leave, and they come back and they say, hey, I got some friends are coming to see your show. We're all coming to see your show. And he said, well, this guy did a pretty good job, or this girl did a great job, or, you know, the artist, whoever the artist is. And it does make a difference. I mean, and it shows, you show how much you love what you do. It doesn't matter how many people are out there.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
You know,
and I know you have quite a big following, and I know you put it all out there, and a very respectful tribute to Elvis, and probably the best I've ever seen. I'm a little biased, but
oh yeah, you're a little biased, you know.
but definitely it's a heartfelt tribute, and I always enjoy watching you because I can see it's right from the heart.
Well, I see that in you as well. I mean, it's just unreal. It's Elaine and I talk about it all the time. Was, gosh, Logan is just incredible. He's gotten so much better. He's gotten better and better. It's like you just keep escalating, and you're going up that ladder to where it's just like, I mean, you're really good. I mean, how much further can you go? And it's like, you know, and you do. And every time I've seen you, you've always done something to improve yourself, and that's incredible. I mean, you're at the age which is a great age because you started so young. and you've progressed. Your voice has changed. You've gotten deeper with your voice and more of your range and your appearance and everything that you do. And it's just, you just shock us every time you come out and do a show. It's like, what was that? It's like, it's like,
Oh,
that was cool. It's like,
coming from you, that means a lot.
well, I mean, it's true. It's from the heart. And, we're so proud of you. And we hope that you have great success. And I think you will.
Well,
I think you're going to go above and beyond what you think.
Well, thank you. Well, that's like with Elvis, though. I mean, it's just what he did, too, It was just to make people happy, and it's just because he loved the music so much as well,
Yeah.
And he always did something different. It came natural to him every show,
And it's true. And, the thing about, somebody brought this up to me a while ago, the transitioning that he did from the 50s to the 60s, and then mid 60s to the 70s, early 70s, and then late 70s. His voice changed so much with the times. His music changed with the times. And nobody's ever done that. Still to this day, nobody has ever really done that. To where it was from the 50s, 60s, and 70s, 80s, or 50s, 60s, 70s, and have that magnetism, that power, that the energy that man put out.
Yes, yes.
The charisma was just, no matter what he did. I mean, I had people say, you know what? I would just pay a ticket just to see the guy stand there. I mean, they didn't care if he sang or not. They just stand there. I mean, and I was like, well, I would like to hear him sing a little bit,
Yeah.
but people would just say, I don't care. I'd buy a ticket just to see him stand there. I was like, wow.
I mean, he had such a presence. I mean, he's been gone for 40, 42, 43 years now, just as long as he was with us,
Yeah.
He's as popular as he ever was.
I don't think it's going to stop. Honestly, I don't think it's ever going to stop. Especially with you and all the upcoming guys that are entertaining. And it's a younger generation. And I'm finding that it's really a widespread generation, young and old. That's what Elvis was like. He had young and old people following him. And I think it's continuing still to this day. As long as the legacy keeps going, I think it's never going to stop.
Oh, definitely. And, when you go to Graceland, for instance, it's like, all the people that knew him and worked with him, and, they'd say he had such a presence when he walked into a room,
Yes.
you'd know he was in the room, and when you go to Graceland, you feel that. You really do.
You do. You do. You still feel that. I remember the first time I went to Graceland, I almost didn't want to go in. I was just like, whoa, I'm stepping into this guy's house, his mansion, and I'm going, I don't know. I step in there and I got the willies. I thought, wow, it felt like he was there. It's like, wow. I mean,
Like you
when
go
you
to
see
the
the
jungle.
place, you go, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's like you go into the jungle room and you can almost see him there.
Yeah, you see him recording or just sitting back and relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's crazy, and there's so many. I mean, when you started, there was hardly anybody doing this.
No, there was about 100, I think there was 150 of us worldwide at that time.
And look
Maybe,
at now.
maybe that.
And there's so many now.
Well, now there's well over 40,000, I think, something like that.
I mean, that's insane to me. But when you think of his nothing against any other artist or nothing, but I don't think that there was ever going to be another one like him, or even in that time he was alive. It's like everybody was secondary to him.
Yeah. Yeah, he was way above. He was so far up there that he set the level so high that nobody could reach it. It was just. I mean, you got to figure this too. He had people coming in from other countries to come see him in Vegas. I mean, busloads. They were coming in busloads from different countries just to see him in Vegas. I
That,
mean, that
that's
says a lot.
yeah.
I mean, you know,
And that's another thing, is like he's so popular in these other countries and he never even stepped foot in them.
no, never did. And you know what? I still think, I think if he had the opportunity to go to Europe, he would have done it in a heartbeat. Um, I think the Colonel held him back on that. You know, I really do. I think the Colonel held him back too much.
Yes.
I think
Well,
he'd have been so much happier if he had the opportunity to go to Europe, and I think health wise he probably would have took a little bit better care of himself.
yeah. I mean, like, you know, like for instance, Aloha, how he lost all that weight for that.
Oh yeah, he looked.
Prepared himself for it. I think he would have done that.
Yeah, I think he would have done that too. I mean, you know, when I was a kid and I saw the Aloha show, and I took my dad's tape recorder at the time, it was a cassette recorder, put it up against the speaker so I could record the show. And when he walked out, I was just stunned. You know, it was like, and I say this to this day, it was like seeing 10 movie stars wrapped into one. I mean, he just had that magnetism even through the TV. You see the guy walk out, and it's like, whoa, you know, he had that strength and that charisma about him. That was just that charm, and all rolled into one. You know, I mean, it was just amazing.
I mean, he was the greatest. I mean, he really was. I mean, he had
Definitely,
the look,
definitely.
he had the voice, the moves. You know, I mean, he was like everything in one. You know.
Yeah, they called him a triple threat. You know, he was a triple threat. He was a singer, actor, uh, an artist. And I mean, he was. Oh my gosh, it's hard to explain, but he was definitely a triple threat. He had so much going for him that was just incredible. You know, and most people didn't have that. They considered him the first rock star, the very
Especially
first rock star, and he deserved it. I mean, he earned it. I mean,
sure. I mean, if you look, you know, at, you know, especially in the 70s, you know, with the, you know, all the rings and the jewelry and the jumpsuit,
yeah,
and then it was almost like a mystique about him, you know, and especially in the 70s,
oh, definitely.
it's like he was so hard to like reach, you know. That's like the Colonel, you know, and that's when Johnny Carson was on air. You know, you never saw Elvis on those shows like that.
No,
It's because the Colonel, I think, wanted to keep him up here, because if he did, it would kind of put him at everybody else, you know.
yeah, yeah. I think it was a good publicity stunt, you know, just to keep him out of touch. You could see him, but you can't touch him, you know.
Right.
And that
Yes.
was about it, you know. I mean, Frank Sinatra was really lucky to get him when he got out of the service. But it was a good comeback for him, though. It worked to his advantage, and because of the fact that people could see him finally after being in the service for those 2 years, and all of a sudden here he is, and it just opened up the gates again in the '60s for him.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
of course the '68 comeback, which was a good way to get back to the audience, and it was his show. You know, it wasn't like he shared it with any other stars. It was just Elvis, and that was it.
Yes, yes. Well, that's like when he first got out of the army, you know, the Colonel had the movie ready for him. And if I remember, was it GI Blues, right?
The first movie?
After he got out of the service.
Yeah,
And he had GI Blues, and that's when he put out that Elvis is Back album.
that's right.
And he worked so hard on that album, and then GI Blues, and the soundtrack to GI Blues did better than Elvis is Back. And he was really disappointed about that, because he put all this effort into that, you know. and the songs on there are so underrated. You know,
Oh gosh.
Soldier Boy.
Yeah,
I like that song.
it's a great song, and it's got such a smoothness about it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really smooth and
Almost doo-woppy.
yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to your Elvis tribute artist career.
Oh,
So you got to perform in Chile multiple times, but the first time you were there, tell us a little about that.
well, the first time I was there, actually, how it came about was that there was supposed to be another guy that was supposed to do the show, and he couldn't do it. And I got a call from Dan Lentino, and as you know, he's a manager for Sean Clutch. But anyway, the other guy, yeah. But anyway, so, I love Sean. But anyway, Dan called me up, and I was doing shows with Dan off and on. And he says, "Hey," he says, "how would you like to go to Santiago, Chile? You got a passport?" At first, I thought he was joking, you know. And he says, I'm laughing at him, you know. I'm coming from Memphis, all right? As I'm driving home from Memphis, he calls me. So I said, "Are you serious?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, we need to get together and we got to do this." I said, "Okay, well, how soon are you talking?" He said, "Well," he said, "I think we got to do it in 3 weeks." 3 weeks? I was like, "What?" So I said, "Yeah, I got my passport. Make sure you guys got it." Okay. So he said, "Yeah, we're going to go to Santiago, Chile. We got to do a TV interview and do all this stuff, and then we have to, go to this casino, and then we got to do the Mapocho." And I said, "What's Mapocho?" He said, "It's a big building." He said, "It used to be it's actually a historical place." I said, "Oh, okay, that's great." So we finally get it together, and we get the show together, and we fly down to South America. And the first thing that happens it was kind of strange because I'd never been to a country where you fly in and you see guys with M16s waiting at the door for you. So I was like, whoa. So we're not in Kansas anymore. But so anyway, we get in there and stuff like that. We meet the different people that are putting it together and the producers. And we had a producer from LA that was part of it. And Joe Esposito. Of course, I met Joe in Atlanta, and DJ and Karen and his wife. We met there first, and we all got together from there, and then we flew to South America. So we get to South America, and they get us on this bus. It's a big tour bus. So they get us on this tour bus, and they're taking us to our hotel. And we get to our hotel, and every one of us has got our own busboy, basically, our own valet, which I've never seen that done before. So we got I don't know, I think there was 12 of us. I think it was 12 of us. We each had our own valet. So we get to our rooms, and they said, "Well, you got to get ready because we got to do this interview." I said, "Interview?" He goes, "Well, yeah. You got to get your hair done. You got to get done up, and we got to go down and do this interview. It's a press conference." I said, "Okay." So I got ready, and I sat next to Joe, and DJ was there, and so we sat there, and we're doing these interviews. And I'd never seen so many cameras in my life. And there had to be at least 50 people in there with cameras and videos and taking snapshots and everything else. And we're sitting at the table, we're just interviewing, and we're talking about the show and what's going to happen and all this stuff. So then we finally get that done. And one of the guys that worked there said, "Well, how do you like your room?" I said, "I really like my room." Well, last night, Mick Jagger had that room. The Stones were here last night. So I got Mick Jagger's room. But so anyway, it was just kind of, wow. I mean, this is crazy, you know. So then finally we go through everything that we had to go through for that. And then they said, well, tomorrow we have, well, actually it wasn't tomorrow, it wasn't the next day. It was the same day. We had to go to the studio at 1 o'clock. So we did the interview at 11 with the press in the morning. 1 o'clock, we got to be over at the studio. They want to do a live show. It's okay, fine, we'll get there. So everybody grabbed their stuff, you know, their instruments and everything else, and we went on to the studio. So the studio is about an hour and 20 minutes away. So we get to the studio, and there's people at the gates. As we're pulling in, there's at least 100 people trying to get at the bus because we're on the bus. So we get through there to get the guards and everything, the gates, and they shut the gates, and girls are screaming and all this stuff. And I was like, wow, this is unreal. But anyway, so we get in there, and it ends up happening is that we finally get set up, we get everything going, and we're back in the green room, and this producer comes in, so we're not going to shoot the show at 2 o'clock. Why not? Well, we decided we're going to put you on prime time. Oh, okay. Well, I'm thinking 5 o'clock, you know, 9 o'clock at night. So we had to sit there till 9 o'clock that night in that room before we could go on stage and do that show.
Wow.
So, yeah, we're like, well, why can't we go back to the hotel? You know, I mean, let's get freshened up or something, you know. No, you got to stay here. So we ended up staying there. And so we ended up putting together the show and everything else. We got everything going. And we had to do a medley of songs, which we had to make the medley up because they wanted to hear these certain songs. So we made the medley up. And Joe went out there and he talked. He had interviewed Joe and DJ. And then they brought me out. So we actually had what's his name with us? Travis LaDoy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Travis was doing the early Elvis. I was doing the '68 in the concert. So anyway, Travis ended up going out there, did his thing. I had to go out there and do mine in the jumpsuit, and I did the whole thing. And ended up meeting what they consider movie stars out there. In Santiago, they're movie stars, and they were sitting in the audience and stuff like that. And we did the show, and it was really incredible. It got a standing ovation, all that stuff, and it was a live remote, and it went out to 10 million people. And we did that show. That was, yeah. I had Elvis in the background, film of him in the background as I'm walking out. And I did the show. I did the medley, and I gave a couple of scarves out and did the whole thing. And then he said, make sure you come and check out this show at Mapocho. And, you know, they promoted it and everything else. It went off without a hitch, and it was good. And then we had a day off, and we did some sightseeing. And then we had to go to this casino, which was amazing because the casino we went to, they called it their Twin Cities. So it took like 4 hours to get to the city. We went around, now get this, we went around the mountain, and you see these skyscrapers, all right? Wow, I mean, this is a pretty good city. No, this is nothing. Wait till we get around the bend. So we get completely around the bend, and you see another tower where they call it the Twin Cities. And it's a massive city.
Wow.
And it had a touch of Europe in it. I mean, there was a guy with a gondola going down the river, and cobblestone streets and buildings that were probably built in the 1600s, maybe 1700s. It was historical places, a touch of everything. Italy, Greece, Paris. I mean, it had a little bit of everything. It was a beautiful city. So we get to the casino, and we did the sound check and all that stuff. And I think I told you about the sound check. Yeah, you don't do this down there. So, that's naughty down there. You can't do that. So anyway, we did the show, and I noticed when I did Hurt, the people, we had 1,000 people in this room. They literally all shifted to the edge of their seats. It was like somebody had told them to do this, but they all shifted to the edge of their seats. And they gave me a standing ovation, but they went back down on the edge of their seat again. And I was like, wow, that's kind of strange, you know? So I ended up doing the rest of the show, and we're bringing people up, introducing them and everything else. And when they got to me, the audience bum rushed the stage. We had all 1,000 people rush the stage. I had Joe on one side, Joe Esposito, and DJ on the other. They knew before I even recognized it, they had me going down the steps like they did with Elvis.
Wow.
They grabbed me, and I was like, whoa, what's going on? They knew what was going to happen before it happened. And I get down the steps. We didn't have enough security. I would say the door was maybe 50 feet from the stage. It took us 20 to 25 minutes to get there because people were pulling studs off of my suit, pulling my hair, taking pieces of my hair out. They just wanted a piece of whatever they could get a piece of. And I was just like, wow, never in my life have ever been in a situation like that. And then Joe and DJ said, now you know what Elvis went through. And he said, we did this every night. So I said, I'd be wearing a wig by the end of the month. It was terrifying, but yet it was kind of like, wow. But to have that kind of reaction, because they never had, Elvis never was there, you know, he was never there. So I mean, to be able to pull a tribute off like that, but it's scary at the same time too. You don't know what to expect, but it was something I never experienced like that. I had experienced close things like that, but not to that extreme.
Yeah. In a sense, it almost was like you were the Elvis.
Right.
Because Elvis never went there, you know, that was
Right.
their image of Elvis, you know?
Right, exactly. It was like, they took it, they in their mind, that's what it was about. And they went after it. And I was just like, whoa. But, yeah, it was crazy. And Joe and I talked for quite a while about that, you know. And I said, Joe, I never experienced anything like that. I've experienced people grabbing at me, but not to the point where a whole audience is coming at you. You know, he says, yeah, he said, Elvis went through that almost every night. It's like, wow, that's incredible. And that's why he had so many people around him too. You know, he had so many bodyguards because he had to, because people wanted to take a piece home with him one way or another, you know.
Yes, and so that big show, one of the shows was professionally filmed and aired.
Yes, that was the next day. We had to do that one.
And if you look at the next day of the footage of that, there's a lot of security there.
Oh yeah, we had a lot. We had more than I think they were expecting. We had the actual military there. We had federales there, and a lot of them were undercover, and they were sitting in the audience. So we had I don't know how many I would say maybe 100 people, if not more, throughout the crowd, and we had them backstage as well. Yeah, it was incredible, and I thought, wow, you're not going to stop 10,000 people. Yeah. But I mean, keep them off of me maybe or something. I don't know, but yeah, we did that show and it was just incredible. They told us, oh, it's not. How they told it to us was like, don't worry about it. It's just a local TV station. Okay. So I said, okay. Well, before I go on, I got to meet the gentleman that was in charge of the country. He was a general, and the history of this guy is pretty neat. He got everything calmed down in Santiago, Chile, and in Chile, and he implemented an election for a president. So as a military guy, he calmed everything down, and the people loved him because he was a great ruler. But he didn't want to be a ruler. He wanted to be a president or have someone become a president. So they had a democracy because of that. And so they went on to voting people in. And he was the one who started it. And I had a chance to meet that guy. And he was hilarious, too. I mean, he had a good sense of humor. He was maybe a little smaller than me. And he had these two beautiful women on his arms, but they were in full dress uniform. And then he had these huge guys standing behind them. And he says, how do you like my bodyguards? I looked at him and was very nice. And he goes, yes. He says, I got to have nice bodyguards. The other guy's got to protect them. I said, oh, okay. So we shook hands with him, and he says, please have a great show in our country. I said, thank you, sir. Thank you for having me here. I went out on stage, and then I did the 68 Leathers, and of course you see all the cameras, and you're going, wow, if this is a local station, I wonder what they do for big shows, you know. But I didn't find out until like what was it, a day later or so, a couple days later, they said, oh, this show was televised. And I thought, okay, well, it was televised for TV. But then it wasn't until about a month after that we're starting to get emails from Germany, from Australia, from Japan, from England, Switzerland. And I'm like, where do these people see the show? And then finally I talked to my friend Mario. He says, oh, I forgot to tell you, it went worldwide telecast. So I'm glad you didn't, because I probably would have been like, hey, there's no way you can get me out on that stage, you know.
But you remain to be the only Elvis tribute artist who did a telecast like that, other than Elvis.
Yeah.
That's an accomplishment, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to be able to have that, and to be even in the realm of Elvis. That to me means such a great deal. Means such a great deal. Um, it was probably one of the proudest things I ever did in my life. You know, having that opportunity to be able to perform like that. But I didn't know at the time, which was great because, like I said, it was a good thing they didn't tell me till afterwards.
So well, you did that in Chile. Now, when you came back to the States, how did that affect your? Did it, up your act to more venues, or how did that affect
Yeah,
you?
it did. It affected it. It affected it quite a bit. I ended up starting getting some bigger shows, and started doing more shows out, and producing myself too as well, and producing other shows. But it made my popularity. It boosted my popularity, and I used it as promo, and literally people were going, wow, where'd you get this? You know, because the promo was so good that I said, well, I tell them, I said, this went worldwide telecast. Oh my gosh. And the word got out. And then before you know it, I was doing a lot bigger shows. And so it really helped. It really helped a lot.
Now, with it being in Chile, you've performed in many other countries as well. And I've come to have a couple friends in Australia, and I know you have a very, very big following in Australia.
Yes, Australia is one of my favorite places too. Uh, the people there are just fantastic, as well as Chile. And the reception has been good, so good in both countries that uh, the fans there are just great. I mean, the Elvis fans are awesome no matter where you go. Uh, Australia is also a wonderful, wonderful place to be, and I hope someday you get to do both because it's an experience, and you get to see different culture, and uh, I think the most fun I had is in Australia because I went out to eat. Uh, well, I'll tell you what happened. The first time I went there with a friend of mine, Bernie Jessam. He does Roy Orbison, and also the Buddy Holly. I can't think of his name right now. Jeff Scott. But anyway, he did Buddy Holly. Both those guys are from Canada, and of course I'm from the U.S. here, and we had an agent that booked us there. He said, how would you like to do a show in Australia? Sure, let's go. So we did, and we did our show there. But before we had to rehearse with the band. So the first time we rehearsed with the band members were real quiet, and Bernie goes in there and he comes back out and he goes, man, the band is not saying much of anything. He said, they're a great band, but they're not talking to me. I was like, well, what the heck? So Jeff goes in there and comes back out, same thing. He just can't figure it out. They're not talking to him. They're all smiling and nodding their heads and, okay, everything's good and all that. I said, well, all right, well, there's something funny going on here. So I finally get in there, and the band is great. I mean, okay, I tell them what I need to be done, and, they did it, and I had to say something. I said, why aren't you guys talking to us? I said, we're talking to you, but you're just smiling and nodding your heads, and, I mean, that's great, but we like to hear what you have to say. And finally, the bass player, Alberto, says, we just love the way you guys talk. He said, we're listening to you talk. We love your accents. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, you didn't say nothing to us the whole time. It's like we thought what's wrong? They're just smiling at us, But they got the biggest kick out of that. They heard us talking. And of course, they come here. We love to hear them listen to them to talk. But we went out to eat one night and went to a restaurant. All of us did, the band, everything, after a show. And we're sitting in our little corner. We got a corner just for us. And as soon as one of us would talk, you could hear a pin drop in that restaurant. And people, you could see them turn around and look at us, and we're looking at them, and they're not saying anything. It's like, wow, this is just strange. So we go back to talking and everything else, and the band members are talking, and you know, all of a sudden people start talking again, and this went on like 2 or 3 times, and it was like, you know, you could hear them whispering, they got to be from America, you know, that accent, you know, they got to be from, you know, another country, but they got the biggest kick out of that. They would sit there and they would listen to us, and I thought, well, that's just crazy. You know, the whole restaurant. I mean, but it was funny. But other than that, the tours were fantastic. The shows we did, the places we played a lot of theaters that held between 1,000 to 2,000 seats. We filled them all, and we did a tour. We did I think it was a 20 city tour in 21 days.
Wow.
Yeah, and the crazy part was we would fly into one, get everything set up, do the show, go out to get something to eat, and then go to bed. That was every day. But we had to be up at 6 in the morning to be ready on the plane by 7:30, 8 o'clock. So by the time we're done with the show and we get something to eat, you're looking at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So we're not getting much sleep. But we did it. We pulled it off. You know, in the middle of the tour, we ended up having a day off. But now I think that was in Melbourne. And that was incredible. And we played several casinos and big arenas and theaters. So that was really cool.
It's amazing how you've been all over the world doing this, and it's amazing how Elvis is known all over the world.
Oh, he is so known, it's unreal. It's amazing because you could say Elvis and they'll know who you're talking about. You know, he had that way about him, and I think the families have carried it on, that tradition throughout the years of playing the records. And I mean, there's even people that come to the shows and they'll say, when we're doing a Christmas show, you know, I'll have guys come up to me that were young guys and they're saying, you know, my grandmother used to play that album all the time for Christmas, his Christmas albums or his gospel albums. And so that's how I got introduced to Elvis, and eventually they said I started listening to his rock songs, and I was like, wow, and you know, this guy could be in his early 20s, and he says, I remember this from my grandmother, and it just keeps going on and on and on. I mean, as long as people keep playing Elvis music, I think it's never going to stop.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. So let's go back to the United States. And
okay.
How, you started in 1980 and the tribute world was very different. How has it changed from then to now?
I think it's gotten better. I really do. I think the fact is that we have more now than we had back then. The technology, of course, helps a lot. YouTube has got so much more videos of Elvis that we could ever possibly see. When I first started, all I could go and see, I had a friend of mine that her name was Linda, and she had her husband at the time was working for Marcus Theaters, and he had the reels, the actual movie reels of Elvis on tour. This is Elvis. He had the Aloha show. He had what was it? That's the Way It Is. And so I remember going to the theater after midnight, and that was the crazy thing, because it was like wow, this is what Elvis did, you know. So we all got popcorn and candy and everything else, and marathoned it. I mean, we started around 12:30, and we wouldn't get done till like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and sit there and watch Elvis on the big screen. That was my education. I mean, on Elvis, and of course I watched the movies and different things about him, and we didn't have the bootleg stuff per se at that time, and if you did, it was very rare. I didn't get anything. I got some film of a friend of mine gave it to me. I think it was like in 1985. That was some clips of Elvis. I believe it was from the Aloha show. Yeah, it was the Aloha show where Elvis, you don't see it on the Aloha show, but you see him turn around and smile during Big Hunk of Love. And you see him grin, and he starts laughing, natural born behind, feel the vomiting to the stop. Okay, you don't see what he does, why he's grinning, why he's laughing. It's because he drank some water during that part and threw it at Charlie and went back to singing the song. So I actually had that footage, and it was on there, and I was like, wow.
You just a natural born beehive, filled with honey to the top. I ain't greedy, baby, all I want is all you got another.
Wow, never seen that. Just a little snippet like that. You never could figure out why he was laughing, but it had that little snippet on there. And there was other film too of the '68 comeback and different things that I'd received from this friend of mine that had this stuff, and I was like, wow, this is some neat stuff. I mean, there was some stuff from That's the Way It Is that I'd never seen before. But then again, it was out there, but nobody really knew about it. That's why I was so happy when they finally came out with the Aloha show, where they actually show the alternate Aloha, and they show the making of the songs that he did behind the scenes after that show, and then went on to do the Aloha show. I do have some. I got to find them. I got like a little library of stuff that's from That's the Way It Is that I got from a friend of mine, and it's like there's like 6 different DVDs, and it's all about That's the Way It Is. Him in the studio, and it shows him eating a sandwich, drinking some water, guys horsing around. This was all being filmed, but you never see that. And then, the whole thing with the recordings and different things he was doing, and some outtakes, and it's pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, there's so much more now out there. But like when I was starting out, we didn't have computers. We had them, but they were like this big. We didn't have the technology. We had to actually learn from film that we did have. The music, most importantly. You had to listen to the music. I got to the point where I'd hear Elvis when he would sing. I would listen so close I could hear when he's taking a breath. Okay, took a breath there. That's when I'm taking the breath.
Wow.
So I'd take my breath the same time he'd take his. And that's how I trained myself. And developed after a while to be able to do that.
That's amazing, Gary.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't think about that, but I did. I was like, whoa, he just took a breath there. Okay, that's where he's taking a breath. And it could be such a slight, you wouldn't even hear it. But I heard it. I was like, oh, there it is. But that was my training. I mean, I had to learn all that on my own. I was self-taught. And even after a while, I wanted to get voice lessons. And I wanted to go from that to get voice lessons. It was probably about 1986 when I had this opera singer come into my show, and I was performing, and I believe it was at Nick's. I was performing at Nick's, and I asked him, I says, you know, I like to take voice lessons, and he said, I can't train you. I said, why not? He says, because you've already trained yourself already. He said, you're doing everything right. He said, if I mess with you now, it could mess you up for your future. He said, you're doing everything right. He says, you sure you never had any training? I said, no, I've never had any. And he says, if I teach you now, it's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you. He says, your voice is going in the right direction. And he says, the power will come. You know, he says, just keep doing what you're doing. And I was disappointed because I really wanted to have more training and more openness to my voice. I wanted to be able to have that, how can I say, more of a power voice. I wanted that, hit those notes. I wanted to make them stand out, you know. I wanted them to be powerful. But he wouldn't train me. And he says, don't touch it. He said, it's not broke, don't fix it. And I said, okay, well, I wanted to do more, you know. But I wanted to get ahead, you know, a lot further. But he was right. And I've been able to do things in my voice that I never thought I could do. And I'm still learning. It's never ending.
Because you have like a 4-octave vocal range, right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm close to a 5.
That's just outstanding.
Yeah.
That's very hard to achieve.
It is. It is. It's very hard, and it's hard to keep it. So you gotta practice and keep it. And it's like anything else. It's just working a muscle, and you keep working it.
Right, and in the 80s and 90s, that was before all these, for instance, like the professional suit makers.
Yes.
Or manufacturers started. So where did you find, you know, these tips and resources doing that?
Well, for me, at the time, my first marriage, I was married. I'm on my second marriage with Elaine. My first marriage, before we got married, she was making Elvis clothes for me, and she made a couple of jumpsuits for me, and then eventually, I ended up getting a fellow from Canada to make my jumpsuits, and Will Reed was his name. And actually, a friend of mine, Paul, came up to me. Not the same Paul we know, different Paul. But anyway, he came up to one of the shows, and he says, look, he said, I got a couple of jumpsuits that I think will fit you. And I said, okay. So then I tried them on, and they needed to be fitted. So he got them fitted for me and everything else. And I had my fringe one still. And I had another one too. I think it was a 2-piece. Yeah, I had the white jacket with the black vents, white pants. I had that suit. And I had other suits too. I had leather jackets and stuff and different things I changed up with. I bought different jackets and things like that. So I tried to change up as much as I could. I had the black poncho. That goes way back. But anyway, but eventually I ended up getting different jumpsuits, and I bought one from this guy Paul, and it was the Matador. So I bought that. It was the black Matador, and I wore that. And then eventually I ended up getting I bought the pinwheel from him eventually. So I ended up getting that. But this was made by Will Reed. So he says, well, I'll give you Will's number. So he gave me Will's number. And then I started contacting Will. So, I mean, back then, I want to say Will was making my suits from, I would say, 90, 89, probably from 1989 up.
Wow.
I had suits made by him. And when he made you a suit, it fit you like a glove. I mean, it was just amazing, right down to every little cut. It was made for you. And of course, he was an Elvis tribute act himself, and he got tired of trying to find clothes, so he eventually just started making them. And he made some beautiful outfits. I was like, wow, I got to get this guy to make some for me. So he ended up making some for me, and I ended up getting my owl from him. So I had the Matador, I had the pinwheel from him. As a matter of fact, I had 2 pinwheels made by him. The fringe suit was the original fringe suit my ex-wife made for me. Then I went to one that Will made, which is the one you got. And then I think I ended up getting, I think. Yeah, I got like 4 or 5 suits from him.
Wow.
Yeah. Then eventually I got a couple of B&Ks, AGM, you know, of today. Those are the guys that I got from today, but this past few years. But Will was a big factor. His prices were good. He fit everything right. He took time with it to make sure it was right. I got my Aloha suit from him in '97. And I could still fit into it, which I'm shocked. But he made that for me, and I didn't want to put it on because it was, at that time I never had a suit that looked with all that on it before. I was used to wearing the pinwheel, and the nail suit was made by him too. I was used to wearing jumpsuits like that, not to where they were so fancy with gems and jewels and stuff. But when I got the Aloha suit, Elaine came and picked me up, and we had to go do a show up in at Tunica. I had to go to Tunica, and it was called the Sheraton Hotel. But anyway, she said your jumpsuit came. This was in 1997. She says, "Wait till you see it. You're not going to believe it." I said, "All right." Well, opened up the case, and I looked at it. I said, "I can't wear that." She says, "Why not?" I said, "No," because I just freaked out. And it was just like, that looks too close to what he had. I mean, it just, everything was just perfect. And I want to say maybe 2 years later, maybe not even that long. No, I had to be about the same year. 97, 98, maybe 98. I was doing a show in Memphis for Elvis Week. And I did the show, and I was wearing my Aloha suit. And this fella tapped me on the shoulder, and he says, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" Sure. It was Dick Grobe. And he says, "Can I sit down with you for a minute?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Where'd you get that suit?" I said, "A friend of mine up in Canada makes them." He goes, "Let me tell you something. Is that suit looks identical to the one I held in my hands when Elvis was in the Aloha show." And I said, "You're kidding me." He goes, "No." He said, "That suit is as close as I've ever seen." And I was like, wow. So that's how I got introduced to Dick Grobe, because of that suit. And I ended up becoming friends with Dick and his wife and stuff. That's another story. But anyway, but that suit, it had such a great look to it, and it moved well and everything else. And when it was new, it was so sharp looking, and wow, he did such a beautiful job on that suit. And
it sparkles when you wear it. I mean, it's definitely suits you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's an awesome suit. I love that suit. And it's as much as everybody says it's the common one to get, it's still one of the prettiest.
Definitely, and it's so iconic.
Exactly. That Aloha suit is just, like you said, iconic. And I couldn't say it better. And to wear that suit was just such like an honor because of what it represented, and it still represents today, you know.
Now, Garry, you've worked with many of people that worked with Elvis and knew Elvis, such as the Jordanaires and DJ Fontana. Tell us a little about that.
Really incredible thing happened with the Jordanaires. I met them many years ago in Memphis, and of course, you know, it was only a one-time thing that I met them. But then I ended up in Laughlin, Nevada. I was doing a show there, and they ended up coming to one of my shows, and so I got to sit down and meet with them for a while, and I got to talk with them. And for that whole week, they were next door at another casino, and so we ended up. I ended up jogging every morning with Ray Walker. That was an experience, especially when I'm used to getting bed late. But we hung out for that week, and I got to know these guys, and just terrific guys, just unbelievable. I said, well, maybe someday we can get together and do a show. And eventually we did. We started doing shows together, and it became a friendship and a family type thing after a while. And along with DJ and his wife, Karen. So we did a lot of tours together, and we're friends. We're still friends today. So we've been friends for, oh my gosh, wow. I'd have to say 30 years, maybe.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, and we've worked a lot together, and it's amazing because you get to me, whenever I got on stage with them, I was like a kid in a candy store. You know, it was just a thrill to be able to work with them. And you really had to be on your game because these guys worked with the real guy. They worked with Elvis. And so I've really put more effort into everything I did because I wanted to make sure I was doing everything correct. And I wanted to make sure that they knew I was doing my best. And that was, you know, it was every time we got together, I felt like I had to be on my toes, but you know, I relaxed enough around them where we had fun on stage, and there were times that DJ wouldn't get off the drum set because we had our drummer. He got so wound up in the show that, you know, he said, no, I want to stay up here. I want to stay up here and play more. And then I found out later on from his wife, she said he doesn't do that. He normally goes up and does a few songs and he leaves. But he's having fun with you and he doesn't want to leave. And I said, well, that's fine with me. He can stay up there as long as he wants, you know.
Well, I'm tired and so weary, but I must go on till Lord comes and calls me away. Oh yes, well the morning so bright and the land is alive and the night is black as a sea. Oh yes, there will be peace in the valley for me someday. There'll be peace in the valley for me. Oh Lord, I pray there'll be no sadness and no sorrow. Oh my Lordy, no trouble I see. There will be peace in the valley for me.
So I mean, we all had fun on stage, and the Jordanaires, we crack up and have jokes. It was like, you know, you brought the audience in more too. You made them feel like they were part of the fun and the music. And I think Elvis had that about him. He brought people in, and his people with him helped bring people in. And it made it more like, hey, I'm sitting in your living room when we're just having a good time, and good music and having fun. That was a big factor right there. Once I got used to being around them, that we had fun, and it showed. It showed in the audience. But I not only just worked with them, I worked with the Blackwoods, the Imperials. I worked with the Sweet Inspirations, Miss Millie Kirkham. Elvis's high singer. She was his original high singer. And, all those ladies and all the groups were just fantastic. They all had stories, and that was the neat part of being around those people, is because they all had stories about Elvis, and they would share with you, it was, we had like that family get together type thing, and it was fun. And it was, they'd reminisce, and I'd sit there at the edge of my seat listening, because it was just like, wow, I mean, you were there, they were there, and, so yeah, I got to work with them and Joe Esposito, and of course I got to work with Jerry Shift on a gig in Connecticut at a casino out there, and that was a few years ago. That was during the birthday tour. I did the birthday tour, and I got him along with the Jordanaires and DJ and Jerry Shift, so I got to work with him. Super nice guy. But yeah, I mean, I've been pretty fortunate. I've worked with a lot of people like, George Klein and Dick Grobe and Richard Davis. I got to hang out with these guys in Memphis during Elvis Week. And every year, we'd always get together at the Memphis Mafia reunion. And we'd all hang out together and talk. And, after the Memphis Mafia reunion was over, they'd all have something to eat. And then, of course, we'd all sit down and talk. And I got to hang out with them, with Miss Marion and Bardall and all these guys that were with Elvis. So it was really kind of a neat thing for me, because I could sit there and talk to them just casually and be able to hang out with them. It was very interesting. I've been pretty lucky. I got to meet Sean Nelson, and James Burton. Had dinner with him many times. Ronnie McDowell, of course, Ronnie's not Elvis, but he did a lot of films and stuff like that. And I worked with Ronnie like 3 times. Once back in 1983. That was the first time I got to meet Ronnie McDowell. And he hasn't changed. He's still the same guy. He's just a great guy. But met Charlie Hodge. That was just brief with him. But I got to hang out with, like Jimmy Velvet and Dick Grobe and Larry Geller and all these guys. So, I mean, I've been very fortunate. Memphis was really good to me. We were there for 32 years. We're going back this year. We got the longest running show there. We've been awarded twice by the City of Memphis. We're the only tribute act. My wife and I, Elaine, are the only tribute acts that have ever gotten awards from the City of Memphis. That includes Graceland in that. Wow. So it's been a tremendous ride, and I hope to continue for a few more years yet. And but I mean, yeah, we've done a lot. We had Louise Smith up on stage, Elvis's aunt. She came up and she got up with Elaine and sang with Elaine. And it was funny because she had heard that we'd met her prior to that, and we're at Graceland when she was still living at Graceland. And she says, it was funny because we're walking through and she's waving at us. Come here, come here, come here, come here. We're like, oh, what did we do wrong? Did we step on the grass or something? I mean, yeah. But she says, come here, come here, come here. So we all walked over and this is quite a few years ago. This is probably, I would say, maybe 5 or 6 years before she passed. I just had my hair up in the air and stuff like that, and I had wearing sunglasses. And she said, come here, come here, come here. And she says, "You really scared me." I said, "Why?" She says, "I thought my nephew came back." And I was like, "Whoa, what?" You know? It was kind of a shock. And she says, What are you guys doing?" I said, "Well, we perform at Alfred's on Beale Street." And she said, "Well, I might just come down there." And I'll be doggone. She did. She came down there. We got her up on stage, and she sang with Elaine. And of course, years to follow, every time we go to Graceland, she's, come here, come here, come here, come here, come here. So we go back over and talk to her, you know. She was a very, very sweet lady. So we had so many great experiences meeting people through Elvis. And I give credit to Elvis, because without him, I would have never gotten a chance to meet the people that knew him.
Yeah.
And that is just like an unbelievable feeling to have that, and know people that were with him and knew him, and that's the closest I'm ever going to get to him, you know, as a fan. I mean, I got to meet him in '77. It was like I want to say it was in May, end of May, or beginning part of June. But anyway, I was driving my car, my dad's car, and it was up in Stevens Point, Wisconsin, and he was on his way. I think he was on his way from Green Bay to Madison, and it was that famous trip to Madison that he ended up breaking up that fight. And so all of a sudden, you know, back in that time, you didn't see limousines. You know, I mean, you just it was like somebody rich had to have a limousine, you know. And of course, I was in my car, and he pulled up alongside, and they pulled up alongside, and I freaked out. Window rolls down. He goes, "How you doing, son?" And I was like, "Whoa, that's Elvis Presley," you know. And that laugh he had, and the look on my face must have been just enough to make him crack up. And he laughed, and he says, "Take it easy." And I said, "You too, sir." And I almost rear-ended cars trying to catch up to him when he got on the freeway. So, well, that was my encounter with Elvis. And I was supposed to go see him. A friend of mine had tickets, and we were supposed to go see him, and I couldn't go because I had to work. And so I regret not going to see that concert. But yeah, that was my encounter with Elvis. But going back to the people I've met and entertainment people I've worked with, and I've been really fortunate to be able to have worked with them, because a lot of them are gone.
Yes.
And to be able to have that history of working with these people, it's an honor, because it's been my greatest honor to work with them, and to be able to talk to them. And George Klein and I got to be fairly good friends, and we talked a lot, and especially during Memphis, I'd come down there once a year, we'd talk, and you know, if he needed anything, I left him my numbers, you know. There was a couple of times he called me and he says, "Can you get me some film?" I had filmed a lot of the Memphis Mafia reunions, and when Richard Davis passed away, I told George, in August of that year, I said, when Richard passed away that year, his wife was looking for film of Richard, and I told George, I said, "Man, I got film of Richard at the Memphis Mafia reunions." He said, "You do?" I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Man," he says, "she really wants that." And I said, "Well, that's no problem. I can do that." And so I made up a collage of all the Memphis Mafia reunions, and I told George, I said, "Well, I'll send it to the casino where he was working." I said, "I don't want her address. I don't want any information on her. Just get it to her." And I said, "That's private. That's her private life. You know, I don't want people bugging me for something that I don't have. You know, I don't have it. They can't get to it, you know." So I did the privacy thing. And so he says, "Wow," he says, "Man, I can't thank you enough for this." I said, "Hey, it's for his wife and for their kids. And it's a good memory of their father and of her for her husband. But, we did a lot of things to help throughout this career of mine. And I've helped a lot of people along the way, too, that were friends of his. And they helped me, too. I mean, they helped me by just being there. But that's a book waiting to happen. So I got too many stories. But I would like to say, when Elaine and I got our show together, it made such a difference that for us to travel together and to work with people. And we've been very fortunate to work with a lot of major stars, and a lot of people you'd probably recognize. We got to meet a lot of different people. I got to hang out with Carl Perkins. I actually came on before him. I did a show in Mississippi, and it was for Cruising the Coast. And I came on stage, and I heard that Carl Perkins was coming on after me. So I purposely did not do Blue Suede Shoes. I didn't do it. No Carl Perkins songs, none at all. Okay, because Elvis did a couple of his, so I didn't do it. I said, ladies and gentlemen, Carl Perkins is coming up here. Everybody's asking for Blue Suede Shoes, and I said, we'll let the original one do it. He wrote it, he sung it first, and I got off stage, and there was Carl Perkins standing there in his blue suede boots, and he says, "Thank you so much for not doing my song." I said, "Well, it wouldn't be right because you wrote it, you sung it, and even though Elvis made it a hit too," I said, "but you're the originator of that song," and I felt that it needed, to be respectful. And we took pictures together and everything else, and he was just a super nice guy. And they got up and they did their show, and it was fantastic, to be able to work with someone like that from Sun Label, and but I mean, I could tell you more stories, people that I've worked with and people that were associated with Elvis, and Johnny Cash, and Conway Twitty, and so I was lucky enough to meet these people and to be able to talk to them and pick their brain a little bit about what it was like to work with Elvis and of course their careers. But that's another segue. That'll take up 3 or 4 hours just for that.
Part 4. Anyway.
Or more. But yeah, I've, like I said, I've been very fortunate and been very blessed in that way to be able to work with these people and there's so much more. Like I said, we could sit here for probably about 5 or 6 hours and never touch on everything. Because I've had 40 years to be able to work with different people and different artists and be very fortunate of being able to do that. I worked with Tommy James and the Shondells. I worked with Chubby Checker. I worked with Tanya Tucker. I worked with George Jones, Loretta Lynn, Tammy Wynette, Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, Lee Greenwood, Gary Morris, T.G. Shepherd, and I go way back. I met T.G. Back in '86 and '87. We did a show together, and then again in '91, and then we met up in Memphis in the early '90s, and then again in the late '90s, and then again in the 2000s. And he's on my Facebook and stuff like that. So we keep in contact that way. But super nice guy. Another guy that just has great stories. Elvis gave him a bus. I mean, one of his buses. I mean, it was amazing. I got to step up on that bus the first time I met him, and I had to take my shoes off because he wouldn't let anybody in there with shoes on. And I said, "Well, I don't blame you." But again, there's that connection with Elvis, and there's a lot of people that had connections with him, a lot of different artists, and like I said, Conway Twitty, and even George Jones. loved Elvis, and he had stories too. And I think most of the country stars and most stars that ever were encountered with Elvis, Chubby Checker, he met Elvis. He told me stories about him and Elvis, and in Las Vegas, and so I mean, there's so much, and I'm sure people are going to be wondering, well, why don't you tell the stories? Well, like I said, that'll take another, you know. But I would like to give credit to somebody that's been with me this whole time. That's been my rock, I should say, and my my wife Elaine. She's done so much for me in this career, and I think I keep telling her, I said, if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be around, because of this business is really rough. It's a tough business, and it's not just all glitz and glamour. There's a lot of work, a lot of hard work, a lot of stress. Of course, you can't tell my hair's dyed, so you can't see the stress. But yeah, she's been my rock in this, and the love of my life, and she's put in a lot of work herself. She's a national recording artist. She recorded many songs, and she's written many songs. As a matter of fact, we did some original music together, original album, and we traveled a lot with that, sold that a lot, and but we kept on with the Elvis and Patsy Cline thing, so that helped us a lot with our lives and our family. So, but again, the Jordanaires backed up Patsy Cline too. So even DJ backed up Elaine. He backed her up with the Patsy Cline stuff, and so it was really cool to have that. And she freaked out when she first sung with the Jordanaires. The first time we ever did a show together with them, and she come backstage, and after she sung with them, and she's like this. I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "I just sang with the Jordanaires." I said, "Don't do that. I got to go out and sing with them. Don't scare me like that. I got to go out and sing with them now." So because it was you hear the original backup, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa! You stand back and you go, wow, that's the original backup. I mean, you have this idea, figure, okay, it's going to be good, but when it's perfect, when you walk out there and you go, oh, I got to sing really good today. I really got to watch how I sing. I got to be right in time. I got to be on key. I got to watch my phrasings and everything that you do. And of course, I loosened up after a few songs, but it was just like, you're a little scared. It's like, whoa, pull the reins back a little bit. But yeah, we've had a good time with this on our career and stuff, and Elaine's a big factor in that. And she, without her, like I said, there wouldn't have been. I don't think Garry Wesley would have been around that long.
Well, you guys, you can see how much you're like soulmates. It's like how much you love each other, and it's like with the show, and it just pours out as a really authentic show. Yeah.
Well, that's what we are. We're I guess you could say that's very true. Soulmates, and once you find that someone, it makes a difference. It really does, and it helps the fact that she was an entertainer too. I mean, that we both had that in common, and not to say other relationships don't work, they do, but it helped helped us. It helped us, and for the love of the music and the entertaining and people, and again, that has a lot to do with two people you have around you. Our dear friend Jane and our Alabama fan club, she's our Alabama mama. She helped us a lot too, and all our friends down south, and of course our families and everything else made a difference too as well. And our friends, our friends made a difference. When you got people that are there to back you, and of course they tell you the truth, they say, hey, man, that something wasn't right tonight. It's like, oh, what did you hear that I didn't hear? And, or, something that might have happened during the show, or maybe I shouldn't have said that or something, that type of thing. So you got to be careful what you say on stage. But I mean, it's, in the beginnings, it was a lot like that. I had people around me that were very truthful, and Elaine was one of them, and she was very truthful. She says, "Hey, I don't think you should do it this way, and I think you should watch, And she'd been in the business longer than me, so that was one of the reasons why, too. I think I listened to her a lot more, because she'd already experienced so much as a young person. From teenage years, she was already in the industry. So she was a teenager when she started. And I started when I was 19, teenager going into adulthood. And, she'd already had those years behind her. And she experienced a lot more. And I was looking for that too. I was looking for advice, which I got also from my friend Jerry Allen, and he was a big factor in my career too, because Jerry was a versatile singer. He did Elvis too. He had a great Elvis show, but he did Roy Orbison, he did Elvis, he did Buddy Holly, he did rock and roll songs, and he had that versatile voice, and he helped me a lot with my career. And also too, when I first met Rick Esposito too, he's another one. I met him in the industry, and he gave me some great advice. And he told me, he says, "Man," he says, "Don't, if you feel it, you love what you do, and he said, if you really respect Elvis that much, he said, you should go ahead and do it." He says, "Don't let anybody step in your way and kill your dream." He says, "If it's something you really truly want to go after, you go after it." And but he said, "Have that respect, for Elvis." And I never forgot that. And even years later, we still talk once in a while. And as a matter of fact, I got to get you in contact with him. So anyway, but it's it's a matter of people helping people basically in this industry, and it has a lot to do with it, and how you go about it, and you show respect for the artist that you're paying tribute to. In this case, it's Elvis. I've had the utmost respect for Elvis since I was a kid. I always looked at him as someone that was kind and generous and respectful, and just a good person. And that's who I relate to. And his music and the way he presented himself, he did everything with respect. And he always, the one thing that always stuck with me about him was that he never wanted to hurt anybody. Never wanted to hurt anybody's feelings. And Ray Walker told me a story when they were in Studio B, and this was back in the 60s. And Elvis said, Ray says, well, he says, I think it was the fact that I think it was it was actually the late 60s. It was during the time that they were doing the show. They were going to start doing the shows in Vegas, and they were in Studio B, and the Jordanaires couldn't go with him because they were so booked up with their recordings. And Elvis just felt kind of bad, and Ray says, we're sorry, we can't do that with you. And he says, well, it's all right. He goes, well, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. He says, no, you didn't hurt my feelings. He says, I know you got things you got to do. And he says, he said, it'd be like me going up to that man, and it was cleaning the studio. He said, it'd be like me going up to that man and saying, hey, I don't like what you're doing. He said, I can't do that. I can't hurt that man's feelings. He said, it'd be like me telling you, I don't like the fact that you're doing this. He said, I can't do that. He said, you're my friend. He said, I can't hurt your feelings. You're doing something you got to do. And he said, I can't hurt someone's feelings. That's the way Elvis was. He never wanted to go out to hurt anybody's feelings, and he respected people. And he said, I can't live with myself if I hurt someone's feelings. That's how Elvis was. And I thought that was the coolest thing. I thought, that's pretty much what I live by. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm that way too myself. I think I've been that way since I was a kid. If I see anybody's feelings get hurt, and I felt bad, I was like, oh, geez, I'm terrible. I feel terrible. But I never forgot that, and that was amazing to me. That showed what kind of person he was.
Yes.
And it's little stories like that you hear, and it makes you respect Elvis even more. It just makes you go, wow. This guy really thought of everything, and he thought about people, and he never liked to hurt anybody's feelings, which is a great thing. More people should be like that, I think.
Yeah.
They should be a little more sensitive, but that's just me.
Well, Garry, if your fans want to check your website out or see upcoming shows, where could they find that information at?
You can go to GarryWesley.net. That's GarryWesley.net. Or you could find us on Facebook. You can go to Garry Wesley or Garry Wesley Elvis Artist. But Garry Wesley Tribute Artist, I'm pretty sure that's the big one you want to hit, because that's where I got the most people on there. But I do have 4 sites of Facebook, so I don't think you want to go through all of them. But we do have one of Garry and Elaine Wesley. We have one with what is the other one? Gee whiz, I forgot. It's Legends Alive, and that's my other one. And I'm also a producer too, so I produce legend shows and different shows and everything else. And so when I got time, I try to do that as well. So I'm trying to stay busy. But
Yes.
But other than that, like I said, if you want to do another segue again, there's plenty more stories. There's more things that I've done, and but I'm glad you brought me back on for this, and so we can give you a little more information about what I've done in my career. And we are going to write a book. There's several things that happened in my career that I think maybe some of the younger ETAs could maybe learn from, or say, wow, I'm never doing that. How did that happen? I don't know, but I'm not doing that, So, but thank you so much for having me back on, and I think you're doing a fantastic job, and I see your career skyrocketing, and as an entertainer and a tribute artist, I think you're fantastic. Keep up the great work.